Like her husband, Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth came from a royal family of name changers, and for precisely the same reason, to cover up their German identity. Before 1917, the British royals bore the German name of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, which was changed to the more British-sounding name of Windsor. The Queen and Philip are both the great-great-grandchildren of Queen Victoria, who married her German first cousin. That makes Elizabeth and Philip inbred kissing cousins. When it comes to inbreeding horror stories, the Ozark mountain families are no match for the royals. The Queen's first cousins, Nerissa and Catherine Bowes-Lyon, were severely mentally handicapped and incarcerated in a state-run asylum in 1941. Cousin Nerissa is now deceased, but the Queen's look-alike cousin Catherine is still alive. She's mentally retarded, neglected, and never visited. The Queen also has 3 second cousins who were sent to the same mental hospital on exactly the same day as Catherine and Nerissa. Burke's Peerage is a prestigious directory that records the who's who lineage of the British aristocracy. It falsely recorded that the Queen's first cousins Nerissa and Catherine died in 1940 and 1961.
Every family has secrets they would rather the world not know, even the most famous of them all. At every family occasion over the past 70 years, 2 of the Queen's cousins have been absent from the feast, declared dead to family and society.
We were sworn to secrecy. This is something that we didn't talk about.
All the staff were put on, be quiet, don't say anything.
For decades, the cousins remained hidden in an institution for so-called mental defectives.
It just seemed a waste of life. This way, I couldn't put a child of mine into a place like that, whatever they was going to be like.
Many thousands of others, condemned as idiots and imbeciles, shared their fate and were hidden out of sight and out of mind.
In those days, people weren't interested in learning disability people. They were just put there because of shame.
But the royal secret was exposed.
Afternoon, ladies. Nice to see you all.
A private investigator's hidden camera revealed the truth.
Where's Catherine? Somebody said I should have a word with her this afternoon.
Catherine Bowes-Lyon, niece to the Queen Mother and cousin to the Queen, is still alive today. Sheila Rule had cared for Nerissa and Catherine for over a decade and was one of the few to attend Nerissa's funeral.
Well, at Nerissa's funeral there was no family present. It was only staff. And Catherine went. She didn't cry or anything, but she was quiet. She was quiet. Of course, she must feel like there's something not right.
There was no connection with the royalty, and that's no credit to them. They could have given her a very lavish funeral, really, but they didn't. And she had a pauper's grave.
The Queen hasn't parted with a single penny to care for her look-alike living cousin Catherine. No birthday gift, no Christmas card, not a single visit from the Queen or royal family in 60 years. Nerissa and Catherine are not the only mentally defective relatives of the Queen. The Queen's great-uncle, Prince Albert Victor, was mildly retarded and partially deaf. He was also a suspect in the murderous rape of slum prostitutes using a carving knife. The Queen's grandfather, King George V, had an epileptic son. When the boy suffered an epileptic seizure at age 4, the King hid him in an isolated farmhouse. The boy never saw his royal parents again and reportedly died in his sleep. King George III was the Queen's 3rd great-grandfather. Because of his prolonged episodes of severe psychosis, he was put in a straitjacket behind bars at Windsor Castle, where he became progressively insane and blind. Queen Anne and George IV inherited the same genetic madness. The Queen's mother-in-law, Alice Battenberg, had visions that she was Christ's bride. She was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and committed to an asylum in 1930. Alice is Prince William's great-grandmother. Hollywood and the palace spin doctors invest millions in propaganda movies that rewrite history to make the world forget the crimes, cruelty, madness, and the heartless past of the British royals. The Oscar-winning movie The Queen was all about resuscitating the Queen's dying popularity after Diana's murder. Another propaganda Oscar winner, The King's Speech, focused on the Queen's father, King George VI, and his speech impediment. The movie failed to mention royal inbreeding as a cause of his disability. Monarchy movies sell the belief that the royals are sensitive, caring, human, and deserving of worship and taxpayer support. In mid-October of 1964, kissing cousins Elizabeth and Philip paid a royal visit to a Catholic residential school for Aboriginal children in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. William Coombs was 12 years old at the time of the royal visit. "I was an inmate at the Kamloops school when we were visited," said Coombs. "I remember it was strange because they came by themselves, no big fanfare or nothing. But I recognized them, and the school principal told us it was the Queen, and we all got given new clothes and good food for the first time in months the day before she arrived. The day the Queen got to the school, I was part of a group of kids that went on a picnic with her and her husband and some of the priests. We went down to a meadow near Dead Man's Creek. I remember it was weird because we all had to bend down and kiss her foot, and she was wearing a white lace boot. After a while, I saw the Queen and her husband leave the picnic with 10 children from the school, and those kids never returned. They took away those 10 kids and nobody ever saw them again. We never heard anything more about them, and we never met them again even when we were older. They were all from around there, but they all vanished." The group that disappeared was 7 boys and 3 girls in age from 6 to 14 years old. They were all from the smart group in the class. 2 of the boys were brothers, and they were Métis from Quesnel. Their last name was Arnoux, or Arnold. I don't remember the others, just an occasional first name like Cecilia, and there was an Edward. What happened was also witnessed by my friend, George Adolph, who was 11 years old at the time and a student there too. But he's dead now. William Coombs, the sole survivor, was scheduled to appear as the star witness at the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State in London, England. But William Coombs never made it to the tribunal. He died of unknown causes shortly before he was scheduled to testify. Reverend Kevin Annett, a former minister of the United Church of Canada, believes that William Coombs was murdered to stop him from speaking out about the royal abductions and other crimes of murder and torture that he had witnessed at the school.
In a nutshell, what happened was I was letting people speak from the pulpit about the crimes they'd seen in the residential school, the murders and that. I also found out about the land deals that were happening where the church was selling off native land to big logging companies for kickbacks. And I wrote a letter about that to the church. I was fired without cause and eventually thrown out of the church without any due process at all. But that one thing led to another, and I began to work a lot more with the survivors after that, the eyewitnesses to these crimes.